Okay, I think we are now live. Welcome everyone to today's webinar. We are here today talking about one of my favorite topics, and that is building and nurturing referral relationships. So we're going to have a bit of a deep dive into looking at the power of referral relationships in fueling practices. So one of the topic, we're going to keep it very practical, talk a little bit about the sort of why, but also a lot about the how and some do's and don'ts to make this nice and easy for your practice. So we're going to jump in, and we've got lots of people joining us, which is fantastic. Now, don't forget today, we have, of course, the live chat open. So if you have any questions as we're going, please do ask them. We have our team, with us who are able to answer them. So obviously, as we're talking, it can be a little distracting if we're answering them. So we do have a wonderful team here to help with that. Now, co-host today, I'm very pleased to say we have Danielle. Say hello. Hi, Danielle. Great to have you.
Hey, everyone. How are you? It's nice to see everyone joining us today. I'm super excited about this topic, Damien, because I think, it's a topic that people just, it's one of those things that it's such an easy thing, something we should all be thinking about. Yeah. And maybe we just don't remember to do as much as we should.
Yeah. And I think also it's something that people feel quite intimidated about often too. So as health practitioners, people often are kind of shy sometimes to put themselves out there, or feel that they don't want to be sort of marketing or advertising or being, it can be an area of discomfort for people. And so, it's really, wonderful to be able to sort of talk about this. Now, just to do very brief introductions. So those who might be new to Powerdary or new to us. So my name's Damien. So I'm one of the co-founders here at Powerdary, head of customer success. I'm a registered psychologist, and formerly I had along with my wife, we grew a quite a large size private psychology practice, and so we've got very sort of hands-on experience with some of the things we're talking about today, as well as being, we've had Powerdary now for a long time, and we've been able to see, talking to thousands of practitioners, in all over the world about what sort of works for them over the years, and seeing what helps drive their business. So, it's a great topic. And now, Danielle, of course, for those who Danielle often joins me on some of our webinars and our podcasts. So some of you will be very familiar. Now, Danielle, you're marketing manager here at Powerdary.
Yep. And I've been in marketing. Oh my goodness. And I hate to say this number because I don't feel like 16 years. Oh my gosh. Yeah. It might even be 17 years now, but I've 16 years of marketing experience, growing and building brands. I can tell you that, this referral marketing is just one of the many pieces of marketing. And like I said earlier, one of those things that can be overlooked, but it's so important for growing who you are. And it's part of what I love about marketing, because sometimes the simple things are the things that make the most impact on your business. So I'm really excited to get into this topic, and it's right up my alley. I love talking to people, and referral marketing is all about making those connections, isn't it?
And exactly. And that's exactly the point I was just going to make, actually, that before some people have some preconceived ideas about what marketing is, and I'm not a sort of marketer, or how they would sort of view themselves. And I think it's important to really sort of demystify, when we're thinking about marketing, what we're really talking about is building relationships between either the individual or the company and the interested parties who are out there. It could be potential customers, but in today we're going to be talking about potential referrers. And that marketing, it's about that kind of building a relationship so they have a sense of who you are and what you offer. And it's not necessarily about, just writing ads or coming up with a way of kind of like selling. It's about establishing relationships with those that may be that where there's a mutually beneficial, a mutually beneficial situation that can be kind of set up, that we might say when we're looking at Powerdary, and the people that we're sort of marketing to, we're having conversations and helping sort of people that might be interested in utilizing our product, where our product will help them in their business. And it's the same when we're talking about establishing the sort of referral marketing or marketing to referral sources. Is really, it's about looking at what your practice does, how the sort of services that it provides, and helping the referrers, the GPs and so forth in your community understand and have a sense of what you do and how you can help them. Right.
Yep.
So when they have a patient, they are able to think of, I know who the right person is to send this patient to because I have a sense of who they are. So we're talking about really just establishing who you are, and I guess having the referrers in your community be aware of what you stand for, what you provide, how you can help them. Right. Just like the way that we, in Powder, we we like to be talking to people that might find Powder a helpful and useful product, where we build Powder to help practices run more smoothly. And therefore it makes sense. That's the area that we're fired up and passionate about, and of course we think we do it better than anyone else. So we want to sort of communicate to people, this is, what we can do, this is how we can help you with your business. And it's no different really when you're talking about a practice. Let people know who you are, and we're going to talk about some ways to do that aren't as confronting as what some of the things that are out there people find too confronting for them to do. So we'll talk a bit about that. So let's jump in without any further ado. So often when we're looking at this that it is really about this building and nurturing. Right. So establishing that initial kind of contact, so they know like who you are to start with, that you exist, your practice exists, and then being able to nurture that relationship so that it's not a sort of one and done, but it's about sort of having an ongoing relationship with that particular referral source. And this is important, right? It's not, when you're thinking about marketing or you're thinking about establishing relationships, it's not about a one-off, right?
Nope. I mean, think about your own personal relationships. You have to build and nurture them, right? Like if you make a new friend or, you've got a new acquaintance, you've got to nurture that relationship. Same thing's going on here, right?
Yeah, exactly. And with time, like in any other relationship, you also build trust and a sense of, so from a referrer point of view, they're building trust in you as a referral option. And then that makes the whole thing run more smoothly. So we're going to look at, ways of doing that, and in particular, providing sort of effective and efficient feedback to referrers. So once they have made that kind of initial contact and they have referred a patient, how that might sort of operate. And then we'll also talk about some Powder tools to kind of help you track and manage referrers. And then we have a bonus right at the end, Danielle.
We have a bonus. We'll even throw it in while we're going on today for you guys to make everything a little bit easier. But I'm actually really excited to even maybe get some time to show you how Power Diary can help you guys too. So
yeah, absolutely. Okay, so why like when you're thinking about this, why are referral relationships important? Like why bother with this, do you think, Danielle?
Well,
what's behind it? Do you think about it from your marketing, establishing relationships? Why?
Sure. From my marketing brain. Well, I can tell you this. Referrals, as it says, are the lifeblood of most health practices. It is like that stepping stone. It is that way to get in the door. It raises the status of your business. It gets your name in front of those practitioners. It gives them something to know about you, and it's right there in front of them. And I love that. Anytime you can do that, A+. It is cost effective. If you think about the cost of advertising, trust me, I know the cost of advertising. It can be very, very expensive. And you can't always necessarily know, is it effective? I mean, there are certain things you can do. You could, get some emails of people in your area and know who's opened it and track it back. But if you run an ad in the newspaper, unless they're coming in and they're saying, oh, I saw you in the newspaper, and let's face it, people don't always do that. You don't get that instant knowledge of who it is. Whereas if you've got a refer, you know that it's coming from that refer because they're going to tell you they were referred by somebody. So you're going to definitely kind of do that. So advertising is very expensive. Again, I don't think you should leave it out. I think in conjunction with a proper plan, they can work very well together. But you need to do the referrals. So builds that relationship. Again, you're going to build a relationship with the refer, which is a challenging thing to do. But after that, it becomes an ongoing business source. It's something that you can tap into time and time again. And it's a great way to just get in front of these refers. So don't underestimate the power. Don't underestimate the power of a simple letter. What does it cost you? A stamp.
Yeah. And this was this was really parallels our journey when we set up our practice. And this, so my wife's a psychologist also, and we were working in the public sector and decided we wanted to go into private practice. And we had the idea right from the start that we wanted it to be a group private practice that would be well beyond my wife and I, just providing the clinical services, and we wanted to grow it. So it meant that we sort of started with that in mind, and we wanted to get it to grow quickly. And we made a lot of mistakes, like through the process of trialing different things. We made a bunch of mistakes in doing that and wasted an awful lot of money as well. So, and this is where this idea of this letter. So we tried different things, right? And one of the things that we did, for instance, is we spent, it was about $10,000, right, on an advertising campaign when we got brochures. This is for a psychology practice, right? So we got some brochures, like they had DL, single panel DL cards, and at the bottom it had like a tearaway card with our contact details and I think a magnet that would stick on the right. And we had those like printed and then letterbox dropped across the town that we live in has, say, 100,000 people. And we, targeted a bunch of different areas, and we dropped, these. Now, out of that, and I think we sent roughly, it might have been 10,000 or so, across. We had about 5 or 6 redeemed, like 5 or 6 people that contacted as a result of that advertising. Right now, by contrast, we experimented with writing letters to the GPs directly. So in our context, getting referrals from GPs in the community was going to be an important source of referrals. But we were coming into, we were the new entrants in a market that had been very well established. So there were lots of psychologists in the region. They had very established relationships with the GPs, and we were concerned that we wouldn't be able to sort of make space for us to, and people were even telling us before we set up the practice, that's a pie in the sky idea. There'll never be, no one will support a group practice, in this town, things like that. So we had a lot of negative commentary in our ears from people around and from other existing health practitioners in the space. So we were thinking, no, we believe in what we're doing. We're going to try. And what we did is experimented with letters, and we sent we ended up refining it, and we have an example which we'll look at, but of really sending a very simple letter that introduced us and explained what we did, what we were about, and who we were, and how we could help them. That by far and away was the single best, fuel and driver for growth in the practice. And so much so that when we would do follow-ups, we wouldn't, let's say, every now and again, we would send new letters out to remind GPs if we were maybe having new practitioners join, expanding, and so forth. And it was so effective that we wouldn't send the update letters to all the GPs at once, because it would work so effectively that it would overload our capacity to service. And so when we're looking at this, sometimes people and they're setting up a practice, their budget's low, they may have close to no budget for advertising. They may feel like, okay, I'm not, I don't want to, necessarily do things that they find more confronting, like going to visit GPs, which we'll talk about in a minute. But just the idea of a simple letter that explains what you do and how you can help. And we'll have some tips on what to include in that.
Yeah.
It makes a huge difference. So
huge difference. Get a nice piece of paper, a stamp, mail it off, and it's a simple letter. I wonder, and I didn't ask you this earlier when we were kind of preparing for today, did the letter go, it went after you did the advertising mailer to all of those people as well? So they could have helped each other in the long run, because now you've hit these people at home and you only got the 5 responses, but in conjunction with this nice letter, they could have been a nice pairing. But think of what would have happened if you did the letter first.
Exactly. Exactly. And this is the thing about, people in the advertising space will always say, like, there's no such thing as bad advertising. All advertising works. It's just a matter of how much, and that idea of, like, there is an interplay, of course. If you build brand awareness by an advertising campaign, I'm sure this is a preaching to the converted here, right? But if you build brand awareness and then you do other activities, there can be an interplay, which means a subsequent activity is more successful because of that original branding thing. But for most practitioners and most health businesses, that's all overkill, right?
Yes.
The idea of spending money on brand awareness type advertising where it's untargeted, then that is usually overkill, and I would argue a complete waste of money, right? If you're going to do advertising and paid advertising, then you can do some awesome things. You can do some targeted advertising using digital products and Google and Facebook and Insta and all sorts of things. But the idea of broad brand awareness advertising, you'd want to be very clear that it aligns with some particular growth strategy, and my argument would be it's unnecessary and a waste of money in nearly all circumstances. Keep it really simple, keep it personal, and get that relationship going. And that's something that will continue to fuel your business indefinitely, right? Whereas if you do, and this is one of those things we were talking about, about the traps of advertising too, is that in the health context, if you do like expensive advertising that's not targeted, broadly based on the focus on the community, and the response to that is that people, let's say you're a business where referrals, people don't necessarily always come directly to you, but they might go via a GP to get a referral, for instance, or via a physician to get a referral, to activate insurance or something. Now, the problem is that if you do advertising that's broad-based and you stimulate awareness in the community of the need for, say, your service, let's say a psychology or a physio, okay, then, and the person happens to go to their GP to get a referral, that GP may not then send the person to you who did the advertising. So you might trigger the need or an awareness. The potential patient goes to the GP, but you don't end up getting it. But because that GP has a relationship with the psychologist or that they feel comfortable with. So the patient walks in and says, hey, I saw this. I think I need to see a psychologist. The GP says, great. Look, I don't know much about those ones on the ad, but I do know these people over here are excellent. So I'll write you a referral to them, right? And sometimes when we're talking to people about when they're launching their business or they might be frustrated about they're spending money and they're not seeing the result, that's one of the things that's sometimes happening. They're really helping their competitors, not that we often think in health in terms of competitors, but our colleagues who have other businesses providing the same service. Often we can end up fueling those businesses because, the GPs have that comfort with them. And yeah. So anyway, that's just my 2 cents on that. Yeah.
The point is, make the letter. It's better.
Yeah, the letter and anything that's personal, that has that personal is better. Okay. So, now, before you start.
So I'm going to tell you about what you got to do before you start. And these are, again, those free things. These are free things or low cost things that I really recommend that you do for your business. Why? It gets you a good place that people can go and they can research you. So this is what I want you to do. I want you to have the following elements in place. A website. There's a lot of free, really easy to build website builders out there. If you don't want to do that, at least have a social media page, a Facebook page, where you can have the details about your practice, maybe a little presence, a little background on you. You can put your pictures on there. It gives you a place to expand and people can see that you are legitimate. They're going to go, they're going to get this letter. I want them to be able to go online and find you. Google My Business. That is free. Set that up. Make sure people can find you. Yep. It's a clear place to put your contact information, your phone number, your professional email address. Again, you want them to be able to find you and know that you are legitimate. I know you're legitimate. You know you're legitimate. Make sure they know you're
legitimate. For some people who may not have caught the nuance there, Google has a feature where you can go and register, right, as a business, like called Google Business.
Yes.
And you can put in your address, your details, the basic opening hours and so forth. And then that's free, right?
Yep.
And then when people then Google you,
yes.
Google will see and include those results of businesses so people might Google psychologist in this area or physio in this area or massage therapist in this area. And Google is going to now show that result. Your business, and there's no charge for this, right?
Yes, no charge.
Right.
And the practitioner that has received your referral letter, trust you me, they are going to Google you because they're going to be like, who is Damien? And why is Damien sending me a letter? Oh, very interesting. He's going to read it over. He's going to learn a little bit about you. And he's going to go, I want to make sure this dude is real. And he's going to go and he's going to Google you because that's what we all do. You all do it. Don't lie. You Googled at least 4 times already before you got on this call today. Everybody is Googling. So go. Make sure you got a website. Get your social media presence. Don't miss the phone calls. So whether you have a dedicated team member or an answering service, you got your phones going to your cell phone. If you're small and just starting out, make sure you have a way that they can contact you, whether so you answer it with a nice professional voicemail and you call them back, but you've sent this letter, you're going to send this letter, you need to make sure that all of your ducks are in the row behind the scenes. And I know you guys can do it. And a lot of these things, come on, you could get a teenager to help you set up a Facebook page. You could, a website, again, might even reach out to a local school and say, hey, I need some. There are some great ways you can get this done for very, very low cost, but it will benefit your business. And I want you guys to have this in place before you start.
That's right. And when we're talking about setting up a social media presence, that doesn't mean, at least the level we're talking about, that you now need to start posting and finding content and all that. This is really just to establish a presence, to say, yes, that's it, right? And you can
picture
limit
of your
commenting.
business, you got, you can a picture of your business hours, maybe, like your office. I mean, this is simple things that a receptionist, or again, like I said, you got maybe got a high schooler, I don't want
to do for you.
Don't lose your mind over it. Just make your presence.
And I think on the phone calls, I think there's sort of like a hierarchy of not good to good, in terms of how those phone calls are sort of received. The worst case scenario is someone rings and you don't have any way of capturing that, so the phone rings out. There's no message at all.
Right.
Next up from that, I think, is that you have a recorded message. Okay, that there's a standard voicemail, leave your details, etc. That's better than nothing. But if you're trying to grow your practice, I would say don't do that, right? That you're going to lose an awful amount of business. And, that if it's a GP who you're contacted, and this is the first time they're trying to refer to you and they get an answering machine, not a real person, you could lose that GP then and there. And then you lose that relationship. It's not just the cost of that particular referral that you've lost, but it goes beyond that. So, okay, let's say that then you've got the next stage up from that. and that would be to get a third-party answering service. So let's say you're new or your budget is really tight, you can't yet justify having a full-time, admin person answering your calls. Then get a third-party phone answering service. If you Google, there's lots of them that will provide this, and more that are focusing on providing services to health practitioners and they'll answer the phone in your business name, and the caller won't necessarily know the difference that it's going to a service. Now, that means that when they call, they get a real person, they can ask questions, and they can ideally book that patient in. Very often, referrers, if they're unsure about it's a first time they're referring to you, they are more likely to make that initial contact just to sort of, again, that idea of to see what that experience is like. So having that. And then the best case scenario, of course, is that you have your phones answered, by in-house, in-house team, because then you have more, sort of control, reliability, and so forth about how that is being done. But that is definitely, like when we started out, we engaged a phone answering service straight right from the start. In those days, they weren't really a thing. Like they weren't, there wasn't companies kind of doing that, because it was quite a few years ago. So we went around and approached various companies that we thought might be in a good position to do it, even though they hadn't thought about offering it as a service, right? And that's how, because there was no one that was around. We wanted it to be, in our case, we wanted it to be someone that was locally based, although I wouldn't see that as important now. And then we basically talked the business into doing it. We did some basic training with them, of course, about confidentiality and all the rules and things around that, because it was a new business. Most now services, they have got all that attended to already. They've trained their staff, so we had to do it in our case because it was new. But that idea of getting a real person answering the phone, if you're trying to build your business, or you're trying to expand or take it to a new phase, or you're brand new, this really will help drive it. And it's one of those things where success breeds success. That initial referral gets a good experience, they feel good about it, they send another person, and it snowballs.
Okay, so we have to have all those things in place. Be ready. The phone's going to be ringing.
That's it. Okay. So this one about identifying potential referrers, we find that often there's sort of a limit, or people can have like the blinkers on a little bit in relation to this, right? And so there are the obvious referral sources based on your business, and you probably already know these offhand, so they're the GPs and physicians and pediatricians, and could be, absolutely, and you would know those ones that kind of come to mind, for you. But the thing to think about is to kind of broaden your thinking about this. So if you think about other allied health professionals, is often so that these sort of sideways referrals, it's not always, of course, going via GPs. And depending on the nature of your practice, GPs may provide, be a very small component of referrals, and you can receive referrals from other health practitioners. So thinking about other health professionals and establishing relationships with them means that you can end up, you'll refer to them when there are people that are, appropriate, and vice versa. And that way you can establish a connection, not just, from a GP or a physician, but with these other ones. But then think of,
I love that. I love that. I mean, I think of, right off the bat, I think of, okay, maybe you're a psychologist, right? And, maybe connect with that massage therapist, or connect with that, the physiotherapist, right? Or the physical therapist, depending on where you're located, and having those interconnections, like it just makes sense to me, because they all tie really well together, and you can definitely benefit from each other so much. And this next one really excites me. And when we were talking about it, the other people you can reach out to, and if you don't mind, I really like to talk about this one, because I'm really excited about this, because when we were talking about it got me excited.
About this whole other group of people that will refer. And this is the thing: if you think more broadly about who might have a need for the services that you provide, you got to think about, so businesses government organizations, community organizations, nursing homes, sporting clubs, right? Wherever there is wherever essentially there is like a grouping of people that may have a sort of similar need. So if you think about, okay, a business and you're a physio, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's perhaps at times within your business, there's either injuries or it could even be unrelated to the business, but people are talking. So someone comes in to the business and they're limping because they had an injury on the weekend for something they did. Then that's often coming to the attention of the manager or HR and so forth, not of any issue, but just maybe they're doing some modified duties for them or they're just being so them having available relationships that they can utilize to say, hey, we've got this great physio, or we've got this great psychologist, or we've got this, and they do X, Y, and Z. They know a bit about you, right? At that point, you're able to have people talking about your business, providing a card or a brochure. Ideally, if you want to really go to town with this, you can get some brochures made and drop them off at these different businesses that you establish a relationship with. But where people are talking about coming together and talking about whether it is their like an injury, whether it's a goal, whether it's anything like that, there is then often a need. Your service or your type of service is coming up in these sort of tangential ways in these workplaces and when you get in there and become known, then what you will find is all of a sudden, like a business or an organization, a nursing home, they're going to want to refer to the same as the GPs. They want to refer to people that they feel comfortable with, that they know something about, rather than just making a comment, oh, you should see a physio, right? Or look, go and find a physio and, whatnot. But if you say, we've got, these people can't, have got this information, this is their approach, or why don't you give these people a call, or let me take care of that. I'll book that in for you. Do you want to see if I can get you in today, tomorrow? Having been at that place with sporting clubs, I mean, this is something that is massively under accessed. And we've got this quote here that from when we were putting this together, like when we were building our practice, we found sporting clubs, there was so much demand for psychology and related services. We couldn't meet the demand, that was there for that exists in sporting clubs and those sort of community organizations, because there's so many dynamics at play there that make it a wonderful place to be able to provide services and have known within those. So if you think about like what happens, the dynamics of it, you've got often kids who are are developing. You've got parents who are waiting on the sidelines, talking about life and about various things. You've got injuries that are occurring. You've got educational needs that are occurring. Often sporting clubs have a role in not just the sport, but developing people, whether it's kids or whether it's adults. It's a sort of social sort of hub. And where people will often go to their coaches and go to people to talk about whether it's physical injuries or whether it's psychological stuff that's happening. Those conversations are happening in those clubs, in those communities, and they want relationships. They want to know, what do I do with this injury, or if someone is
who do
depressed,
I call? What do I do?
Right.
I can tell you, having children involved in those sporting clubs, someone gets hurt, they're always going, who's the physical therapist to call? And you ask around to the other people, but if you can go and get to that coach or, get to that, the president of the club and really get if you're looking to build, it's genius. And and don't just leave this at, the physio or physical therapist. This can go much deeper. Those children need, services in, the mental health world and so many other things. And to have someone open and willing to be there for those children or those clubs or whoever it is, I mean, wonderful. And the business aspect of it, coming from my past manufacturing background, where I've seen this, to have that HR person know of somebody that they can connect an employee to, and they've built a relationship with.
Yes.
I've seen that in action, and that will do you so much good. And actually, they're going to thank you because you're making their life easier too, because
Yes.
that it's just, it's the, when we talked about this and this first came up, I was like, wow, the opportunity there. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, the opportunity involved with all of these other things. See, look, think out. It's kind of thinking outside that box, because your initial reaction is to go to the ones that are, practitioner based, but thinking outside that box and really who else can I reach and how else can I reach them? And this letter is that great first step. And
I think that a couple of other points on this topic too is that, one of the other, if we just stand back and look at it from a business point of view, one of the other reasons to sort of diversify your referral sources here is around you're sort of ensuring your business against there being too sort of singular reliance on a particular referral source or stream. So if your business relies on particular insurance programs, or if you're, say, in Australia, if it's reliant on Medicare, or if you're in the UK it's NHS, or if you're in the US, particular insurance programs that might provide, that if your income stream is too narrowly based on that, if there is a change to that beyond your control, at a higher level, change to funding, change to eligibility, anything else, then that can have these sort of shockwaves through your practice. Whereas if you've diversified those referral sources, you have a very robust practice, and that gives you confidence to do things like to recruit and expand even when economic times are uncertain, because you have this kind of network of referrals. You're not sort of sitting there and dependent on that one. And the other point, just quickly, and I know we've spent a fair bit of time on this slide, but it's so important, is that
you have such passion about it.
I do have passion for this.
I love it.
I apologize to anyone if I'm going into too much detail, but I really feel strongly with this, right? So when approaching, especially businesses, government organizations, right, typically, we're looking at smaller practices, right? They make contact, and sometimes they've got a thing in their head, or they might initially get this message that we have, the government organization, the business, we have an EAP in place. We have a contract. So there's different terms for different, but they might say we've got a contract in place for a national provider of all these allied health services, right? So, and it happens all over the world that often that they will have, but here's the thing, right? Most of those, without naming any names and without getting sued, right? But the reality is, when people provide the organizations that provide these national, in some case international, employee assistance kind of programs, it is very, very difficult for them to compete with and provide consistent quality of care at a local level, right? Because they've got to rely, essentially the way that those businesses work is that they will tender, they'll put in a bid for the work, they'll go in at a low bid per session, right? Because they want to win the work. Then they have to find practitioners to service the contracts in each of the local areas, and they're going to pay less again to those people because they bid it low to start with, and they really don't have the capacity for quality control, right? So often you go and approach your local hospital HR department and say, I can provide these services as a psychology provider for your. They might say, we have an EAP, we have a contract in place for a provider. Don't be put off by that. Right? Say, absolutely, that's fine. Not looking to replace that. Understand you have that in place. However, this is what we can do. This is, and let me leave the details, or you send a letter, whatever format you're interacting. You'll be surprised. We, at our health practice, we provided in the end services to all the major companies in the region, or just about every major, right? Because they would have these other things in place. All right. Sometimes, in fact, they would contact and yes, we have this in place, but we want to use you. Right?
Yeah.
And the cost of what we would be charging would sometimes be 3 times, maybe more even, than what they would have under their EAP, because we're going to be about quality and getting good outcomes for their staff. We're not about like trying to service all of Australia or all of the world, as some of these big companies do. So don't be put off by it. Like, have faith in what you do and communicate that about the quality of what you do and what you can do. And people see it. They understand.
That actually leads perfectly into this slide, Damien, doesn't it?
It does.
Okay. So what do referrers really care about?
They care about like the experience of that patient, if it's a GP, or of their staff member, or of their friend, or of their, the member of the sports club, right? About what they're going to experience, right? So they want to preserve, like if you're let's say you're a physician or a GP, and you're making a recommendation, a referral is a recommendation, ultimately, they want to make sure that that person is going to have a good experience, right? They don't want their patient coming back and going, that was random. Like, why'd you send me to that person? Like, they weren't good at all.
That goes to across the board. Nobody wants to send anybody to you and have a bad experience. They want to have a great experience. So you've put your name out there to this business or this referrer, this practitioner, whoever you've put your name out to. Make sure you offer a great service and you take care of that patient.
And I mean, it's relevant so much, even to us in Powder. Like, so many of the new practices that sign up and join Powder are because of the referral and a recommendation one of their colleagues has made. And that we carry that responsibility. We really feel it, and we want to make sure every single person gets that, like, a really positive experience, because like someone's trusted us to make the referral, and we would, you just never want to disappoint. And this is the same sort of thing. So that's what they're thinking about. They care about like who you are and what you do. They care about that. Like, what's the difference? Why, so many health services, like if you say, okay, well, I'm a massage therapist or I'm a physio. Well, that's sort of like you're sort of marketing or positioning yourself as a commodity, as if it's, completely interchangeable. I'm just like one of many physios, one of many psychologists. But if you say, well, I'm a physio and I take this approach with my patients, and these are the things that are important in our practice, right? Then now there's a difference. Like, now you're not just a physio.
What sets you apart? What makes you apart? Yes.
And that doesn't have to be anything, like, you don't need to come up with anything like some sort of like, exaggerated kind of, stuff. Just be like honest and think about what are your values as a practitioner? What are the things you care about with your helping with patients? And that is what will resonate, that honesty, that about what it is. Okay. They do care about your availability. Okay. So whether there's going to be a huge wait list or not, things like that, they do care, because that impacts on patient experience. So, or if you're available on weekends, for instance, then for goodness sake, let the referrers know, because they care about that. If they've got someone who's working crazy hours and they're looking for someone to refer them, that's going to be great. They like being kept informed, but they really like efficiency and brevity, right? So in the initial introductory letter, in the feedback letters and so forth, brief, right? So we don't want to confuse
like your elevator speech. Your elevator
pretty much super brief, right? So don't confuse. Like, on one hand, we're saying it's really important that they have this relationship and understanding, but like they don't have time to read massive thing. That's not what the goal is. It's about being very succinct and very brief about those particular parts that they care about, right? And then, and then the same when you're writing referral, when you're providing feedback letters, things like that, right? Don't make them these big, long, rambling things about everything, every professional view you have about that patient, right? Think about what's relevant to their provision of care, right? Or if it's feedback, you have consent, you're feeding back to the employer or to someone in an HR department, what's relevant, like, obviously assuming consent is in place to provide feedback, what's relevant for them, so they can get it and go, right, I understand, like quickly assess and see the information that's relevant. So in a GP scenario, the patient goes back, they're sitting with that GP. The GP might flash that letter up on their screen, and they might have like 20 seconds to sort of get their head around it with the patient in front of them. So don't make them read a novel, like, just the key points.
Yeah.
They love it. We have consistently, like, we've researched this.
Would you recommend bullet points when possible?
Yeah, you can.
I love a good bullet point.
You can use bullet points. You can do whatever's sensible for you. We have some templates in the system that you can use. But keep it brief. Keep it brief. They don't care as much about cost of your services. So it has relevance, but they don't care as much about that.
Okay.
Now, I'm aware I'm saying don't go into too much detail with all this. I'm aware I'm probably talking way too much in this, but anyway.
You're just passionate about this topic because it has been very successful for you. So I can appreciate that. And I think our audience appreciates that too. And this is a lot to learn.
Work over and over and over. It is like when you look at successful practices, it's not to say it's the only way to be successful. There's lots of people have built successful practices in lots of different ways. So no way I'm saying this is but when this is done, you see it over and over and over that it kind of works well. Okay.
Yes.
Now there are other ways of introducing and having these sorts of relationships, right? And this is okay. I guess from a marketing point of view, right? There's different channels that you can kind of reach people. Yeah, yes. That's perfectly. It's reasonable. Now you have these one-on-one meeting or a lunch, okay? And this is often what people default to in health, where they think, I need to get in front of the GP.
Right.
And if you can, great. And if it's your thing, great. And if you are going to do it and you're not going to just avoid it, great, right? Absolutely, like, do it. But I can say, I think I can say this with honesty. Like, I'm thinking back of, I don't think there's an exception. I don't think I've done one single gone in and done a one-on-one meeting or done a lunch, a traditional lunch kind of get to know the GP. They often have these spots in their calendar that you can book in, and you're competing with drug reps and all sorts of other people who are trying to pitch things. I don't like the idea of pitching, right? Because I think, in my view, it's the wrong way. Like, talk to people about, if they're interested in how you can help them, right? But there are people who do these one-on-one lunches and they're really comfortable with it. They love it. They're really good at it. Great, right?
I think they're just hungry. They want lunch. No, I think it's a good way. But I actually really like this next one where it's offering something of value, like a presentation on a topic of interest. I mean, so we have such as the sleep management strategies, but which is great.
Yeah.
How good would that be to a manufacturer, or a business or something like that? But go even for the physio, you could go in and do a whole orientation on the proper way to stretch before work, and it could be like a 5-minute thing, and that gets you not only in front of that referrer, right? You're in front of that HR person and get your name out there, but now all of those people have seen you too, and they've gotten to experience you, and it could be 5-10 minutes, but think of how that's gonna do you so good, because not only you're getting in front of all of those people in the business, you got in front of the HR, you got in front of management, you've also got in front of those employees, and they may have a friend, and you're building that referral, you're passing that down and down and down. So I really like that. I mean, even the counsel, if you're on the mental health side, I think again going into like maybe some stress management in a call center, or actually you could probably go in and do it to a physician's office too. You could go in anywhere.
And I've done like stacks, like, I think I've done no one-on-one, like go and pitch for the GP in their allocated spot, right? Ever.
Yeah.
But I've done stacks and stacks and stacks of these like presentations on topics of interest, right? And then what I realized after a while too is, well, forget it as just as a promotional opportunity. I charge for it, right? So, because there's a need for these things, right? So once kind of realize actually like people enjoy this, and I would enjoy talking of something that would be of interest to them, then in the end I'd be like, okay, well, I'd have a fee structure attached to going and doing that, and you're getting like this double whammy. You're doing something that is getting generating revenue, which is of course health practices need revenue, right? So you're doing that, but you're also then getting in front of these
you actually just create a whole new revenue stream for yourself, because again, those HR people, they talk and they have their own community too, so they're going to be talking to each other, and which again, passing down that referral to referral, because you came in, you did that, then that, so you do maybe the first couple for free, and then they start talking, and next thing you've got a whole new line of it. We just got you another avenue of revenue. I like it. Good.
Yeah. And sometimes there are things you just don't like. I once got invited to, I didn't even know this group exists, but they were amazing, right? They were a group of admin assistants that would get together, and they were like a support network for each other, right? And they would get together and talk about, just different ways of kind of helping each other and sharing ideas and whatnot, right? And then they asked, like, would I present to them on a particular thing? And I had a look at, and I thought, this is so amazing. I said, yep, I'll do it, and I'll do it for free, right? It just, what they were doing was so needed, that this support network, because it's so, those roles are so important, yet often undervalued, underlooked. But as a result of that, and it just hadn't really even occurred to me, it was sort of an accident. I was, presenting, and I think I did it for a few years with the same group. But then the admin people were there at the center of so many organizations and so many decisions, right? That they are kind of a focal point. And then they were with, it was, like I said, a complete accident, but they were then recommending our practice across everywhere, because so much information was coming, right? So it's not like, when you're getting out there and building relationships, it's not like necessarily with an identified agenda either. Like it's that if you focus on some value, provide, then that in itself will do the talking. They'll get to know what you're about through that, right? And I think this goes to this next point about go to events that GPs or any potential referrers put on.
Now, should I go to this event and start screaming who I am and being over, all crazy? Yeah. Oh, you need to come to see me. I'm pretty awesome, blah, 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 blah. Or should you? I think you have a method for this, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a mistake that people make. They'll go to this event and they will see it as this, I'm going to go and promote. There's all these potential referrers here, and I'm going to go in and make sure I introduce myself to everyone. And essentially, each conversation I have, I'm going to make sure that this is me and this is my card. This is no, right? It's just such a bad look. And it's those events are not there for that. They're genuinely a networking event, right? So go there and be natural, be yourself, be genuine, right? Don't, show interest, learn about what practitioners, what they're doing, what their pain points are in their practice, whatever is just a normal conversation, right? And let them sort of show interest in you and ask you questions, and then you can provide information about your practice if it feels natural in that conversation, right? So it's such a different dynamic, and you can see it when you look at a room, and you can see people working the room in this really, and it's just so clear. It's this sales pitch. It's disingenuous. It's kind of, you may as well be door knocking. But
this is sales 101. I will tell you, I've worked with a lot of sales people in my day, and sales 101, be yourself, be natural. Don't be the hard pitch. Don't throw it in their face. Don't, especially at those networking events, nobody wants to just straight up throw me your hardest. They don't want that. They want to get to know you, and then that conversation will naturally progress. And then they're going to remember a great conversation they had with Damien, the psychologist. I'm going to go, I got a letter from him, and that's interesting. I met him at this event. He was very real. I enjoyed his company. I'm going to read this. They're going to take a second look at that. So you guys have gotten that, or ladies and gentlemen, you have gotten today some marketing nice help, and also a little insight into sales. So think about that.
And
I love that.
The thing I like about this too, is that, you're genuinely being yourself. So if you're a quiet person, clearly, I can get excited, and I enjoy talking to people.
No.
Right? But I know, but that that's just me. But then, like in some social situations like that, like in this obviously, I might be a lot quieter, right? And I'm more interested in having those individual conversations, right? And I may not go into that situation feeling super confident either, like depending on the stage of their career and whatnot as well, that you can go in and feel a bit nervous or a bit intimidated or a bit, right? But just be you and go, that's okay, because I'm not, I don't have an agenda I have to like push, and just let it naturally. So if you're a quieter person, go in and be the quieter person that you naturally are, and don't worry about targeting particular people or just be there, have
But don't go
conversations
stand in the corner the whole time
No.
either. You've got to mingle. You got to step up just a little bit, but you don't have to go too far out of your comfort zone.
No,
Don't stand in the corner. I don't want to see you over there.
No, yes, thank you for that. Yes, you're right, but you're right. But it's about natural to you. So if you're going to have a quiet conversation, it doesn't need to be with the senior GP of that person or that senior. Forget that. Like, don't have an agenda like that. Just learn about what people do, what their practice is, or what their circumstances are like. Have a normal conversation, let it flow where it flows. And if you walk away and there was no talk about your business that's fine, right? That's so fine, because there will be, they'll remember you, and it's a relationship building. It's not a pitch. And look, I've had conversations with people. They're like, oh, I can't go to those events. I'm like, so I'll do a little pep talk with them first.
You can do it.
Get all that stuff out of your head. Just go and be you. Have a cup of tea, have a coffee.
Here, watch this webinar. You can do it. We know you can.
Yeah. Okay, we only have a few slides left and a few minutes left. We are okay, on track. Now, do you want to talk about this letter?
Yes. So I want you guys all now to look below. We are now attaching this downloadable, so you can download it right now and use this template. Go ahead. We want you to go ahead and make your own based off of this template. I love this template. So let's go ahead. Let's go to the next slide. Let's walk through it. So we're attaching it now. You guys have all got it. We'll also send it in the follow-up email. So this letter is tried and trusted and true from Damien himself. This is your nurturing referral relationship letter. You got to do a feedback letter, right? So we're going to give you 2 downloadables. One is that intro letter. This one will be your feedback letter, because not only did you just go, and we've talked to you a lot about introducing yourself, now you got to give them some feedback.
That's right. And yes, this
is your baby. You designed it. Do you want to tell us what you have in here?
I'll run through it super quick. So that first one that we're looking at here is that introduction one. It's got the key things to include on that. We'll put it in that link that you can see there. And some how to put some photos in and whatnot. So that's the one for introduction. But then once you have that established, you want to keep the relationship and nurture that relationship, and that means getting back and providing the feedback about how their patient is doing. Of course, assuming that we've got the right consent in place from the patient to provide that. So I'm going to take that as a given. But so in here, a few key things is you want to have a consistent structure, right? So that the GPs or they get used to knowing where to look on the page for the information that is relevant, right, to them. So the first might be, obviously you got your address and your, hello sort of stuff, but then the actual content, is a quick reminder of, and maybe an update on of the sessions that they've had. Then a section essentially on the interventions that have been provided, right? Then a little section, and these can be only 1 or 2 sentences. It doesn't need to be a lot. The response, to those, or results, from those, and any observations that you might put, and then something about what's coming next, right? And that what's coming next might be what the next phase of treatment might look like. It might be a different approach. It might be a different, whatever it is, just put it on there. So it's very kind of simple. And what we've found in talking to lots and lots of people over the years, and our own, trial and error, is that this simple 1 page, right, is the thing that tends to get the most positive results and the most positive sort of feedback from from referrers. It's simple. They know where to look, and you can use templates, which we have in Power, and you can add your own. So if you don't like that, you can put your own in there, but to make it really fast and efficient to do and consistent for people. So they're not having to scan all the time looking for where do I find this information I'm interested in. So it is, super, super important.
Okay, I like it.
Last couple of things we're going to just talk about, a few do's and don'ts. Okay, be yourself at events. Look for opportunities, show interest, help others solve problems. Talk about positives. This is right. Like this is don't go to an event and use it as a place to kind of dump all your worries about your practice or about
don't
struggles. No, right? Keep it positive, and so that you're expressing you are a positive person to be around, and that they're associating positive things with your business. Okay, express gratitude to referrers, right? And what I mean by this is that, like, the way that I view it is that when someone refers, like whether it's a GP, whether it's a community member, whether it's a friend, they refer to your business. Like without that, your business ultimately is not going to exist. It's not going to do well if people don't refer. And so I think it's a huge, I feel very there's a lot of appreciation and I feel sort of lucky when there are people that are consistently referring, to our business, and I think it's important to express gratitude, right, to that, because if you've got a business that is really growing and doing well, the last thing you want to do is get kind of caught up in your own thinking about how wonderful you are and how, it's all your hard work and all, because it's not the reality, right? The reality is there's lots of people involved in making a business successful, right? And it's the community and the people that refer to you that ultimately help drive your business. So expressing gratitude for that dynamic and to the people who send you business is important. So if you're doing a talk to the community or you're doing something, then express that and say, we've been so lucky to be well supported by this wonderful community of people who refer to us, because it's the truth. And by recognizing it, you're showing that you appreciate that relationship.
Yes.
Acknowledge and track every referral. So get a feedback letter to them. If they refer someone, don't leave them wondering what happened. Send them a letter, just acknowledge that, hey, I had this, thank you for sending them. I had the first session and some brief feedback. And again, we have templates to do that. Keep it brief. Communicate on a regular basis and send a thank you. So let's say thanks for the referral. Make sure you put that up front. We appreciate it. Okay, some don'ts. Okay, don't bombard them with unnecessary communication. Right. We know this, like, for marketing. You have views on this too, right? About
oh God, yeah, right? Definitely don't. I mean, don't do it. Yeah, keep it. You don't want to bombard them. You don't want to be spamming them. You don't want them to think like, oh my God, there's Damien again. Get it enough, but not too much. Keep it to the necessary stuff. I like that.
It's a conversation we have in Power Diary all the time, right?
Yes.
Because, like, how much do we want to communicate, like, a lot. We want to, there's lots of things we want to talk about and send emails. But at the same time, we're always trying to find that balance, right? That, we don't want to overdo it and have people feel like we're bombarding them. And you're very good at keeping us all, aligned and thinking about these things. But also you want to keep talking to people about things that might be relevant to them.
Communication open, but you just don't want to be seen as a nuisance. So you send the necessary, don't send unnecessary stuff. Send what's necessary.
Yes.
I like this next don't. Don't be seen looking for patients without a positive reason to do so. So if you don't want to be like, oh my God, they're desperate for patients. You're not. Have a reason. New office, new practitioner, longer hours. Have a reason. Maybe you just remodeled, come up with a reason. Don't just be seen like, oh my God, Damien's desperate. No. Yeah. You have to have that reason behind the communication. So that's pretty self-explanatory. You're going to have a great reason. We know it. This one I like too. Don't speak ill of a referral source. Come on.
Right.
Don't talk bad about your friends.
Yeah.
Pretty obvious. Don't do it because it will get back to them. So
yeah, it'll get back to them, and it looks bad to the person you're talking to. And sometimes this is where it's tempting, is that, you know, you might be talking to a GP, for instance, or something, and they might be making a negative comment about one of their colleagues, or, oh, I wonder, you know, right? And you might have had a similar experience, but if you buy into that, you know, and then at the end of the day, you know, it's not a good look. And ultimately, that person, even though they start the conversation or walk away and think, well, are they saying those things about me? Like, if I send a poorly written referral or whatever it might be, you know, that it's breaking a confidence, is the way that I sort of view it, you know. And if there's an issue you've got with a referral source, deal with it privately, confidentially, respectfully with them, but never like speak about that to others and be disrespectful.
Anybody.
No,
yeah.
not like exactly.
Consider this goes back to kind of like that sales 101 too. When you're at those networking events, if you walk into a conference, you know, something we used to always say is know your audience, know your room. Everyone's got eyes and ears. So if you walk into one of those conversations, it might be best to just turn and walk out, because you don't want to be involved with that. Like, do yourself a favor, you know, just don't do it. Yeah. Pretty simple. Don't do it. And I like this one. Don't sell yourself, be yourself. And that's just easy. Yeah. You guys are all great. You're out there. You're putting yourself out there. Be yourself, whoever that is. If you're quiet, be a little bit more quiet. If you're outgoing, be outgoing. But don't be a salesman. Nobody wants the used car salesman. They want to know you, and that's going to do you much better down the road. You're great, but you don't want to be a salesman. So and be yourself.
Absolutely, and that goes beyond the events. It goes to the nature of the communication that you send as well. So we've got these templates for you to sort of, you know, get you pointed in the right direction. And often it's easier to edit something than it is to write something from scratch, which is sort of our intent behind providing the templates. But if there's things in there that you're like, well, that's not really me, like that's fine. Make it you. It doesn't have to be exactly that way, but use that kind of format of the concept, but then make it you. So then it will resonate, and it just has this flow-on effect that then they'll get a sense of who you are. They will send patients that they think will sort of resonate with the kind of vibe, if you like, your vibe or the vibe of your practice, their approach. Patients will have a good experience. They'll then go back and say that they've had a good experience, and the whole thing works well. But if you try and be something else, or you've got an idea in your mind and putting pressure on yourself to be a certain persona or whatever it might be, that then, you know, it's setting up. It's too hard. I mean, it's stressful.
Well, I'm not going to be you, Damien. You're not going to be me. You got to be yourself. So use the templates. You know, be yourself at these events, but change it for you. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. Finally, and I'm aware we're out of time, so I'll just very quickly maybe talk about these things. And
we will include in our follow-up email some, you know, ideas on how you can utilize these tasks and templates and reports in Power Diary to help you, since we have gone over time. But Damien's been very passionate about this topic, so I love it.
I do apologize to anyone who's had to leave exactly on the hour or is now late for something. But yeah, really, this is an area that I absolutely love. And we've built features in Power Diary to help support this. So we've got the communication templates. You want to write a letter or whatnot, you can go into the client profile, into their communication, and write a letter. It'll pre-fill all the information. So those templates are in there. In tasks under the patient profile, you can also set up reminders to contact GPs. And there's also reports in Power Diary that you can filter that shows you whether they're active and inactive referrers, so you can see who hasn't been sending to you. But you can also filter in a way that will show you the value of those referrers. So it looks at how much has been invoiced that is linked to particular referrers. So you're actually able to see and make sure that your nurturing is being sort of focused on the right areas, because sometimes there's really quiet referrers that are sending you a lot of people, but for some reason they never really quite hit your radar. And so by looking at it, you can make sure that you're giving due attention to the people that are supporting your business. And
then you could reach back out to, even if there's a bunch of, the inactive ones, you could reach out to and utilize them to be like, haven't heard from you, or maybe there was a negative experience. You could kind of open that line of communication by utilizing those reports. So yeah, we could definitely, it's a great asset of having Power Diary.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. So I think that is everything that we wanted to cover off today. So thank you, Danielle. Once again, it's been wonderful having you, and particularly for this topic that really does have that relationship building element is so important. That's what it's all about.
I think everyone appreciates your passion about this project, or about this, and all that you've seen it in real life, and you've lived it and you've breathed it, and it's so obvious. And I appreciate being along for the ride. And please, if you guys have any questions, I hope that our chat was open and you can see all those answers. But if you have anything else, you can always reach out to us, support@powerdiary.com. If you have a marketing question, you can always reach out to connect@powerdiary.com, and we will get back to you there as well. So
wonderful.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.